know. No, it isn't. They don't show people.
Welcome everyone on this sunny day. I call this May 14th, 2024 regular meeting of the City of Powell River Committee of the Whole to order. We start by acknowledging we are holding this meeting on the traditional territory of the Tla'amin Nation, who have stewarded this land for time memorial, I should say, sorry. I'll start with the adoption of the agenda. Councillor Elliott, moved. Second by Councillor Isaacson. Any discussion? All in favor? Passed unanimously. Over to section 2.1, adoption of the minutes of the Committee of the Whole of April 30th, 2024. Moved by Councillor Palm. Second by Councillor Isaacson. Any edits, corrections? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous. Over to 3.1, we'll start with delegations. The qathet Regional Cycling Association regarding Go By Bike Week, June 3rd through 9th, 2024. Come on up, QRCA.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Lightfoot. I'm the Active Transportation Director for the qathet Regional Cycling Association. And tonight we're here to talk about cycling in Powell River. Slide advance, please. Thank you. So some background about the QRCA is our vision, as represented by this wonderful local artwork. Our vision is a vibrant community connected by cycling. As you can see in the bicycle, we want to connect the mountains to people's homes, to town, to school, to wherever one would like to go by bicycle. Some recent highlights from the QRCA, as we'd like to announce that we have 468 members now, 5 more as of this morning. We have our Mount Mahoney trail upgrades are in progress, adding new trails to young and old new cyclists, and a history of cycling education in the community, as well as community outreach. We're not here to talk about that so much, but moreover, we'd like to introduce you to an event coming up the beginning of June. This is Go By Bike Week in British Columbia from June 3rd to 9th, 2024. Last spring in Powell River, 242 people registered. And how about you? Well, we'd hereby like to officially invite you to participate in Go By Bike Week with us. We encourage everyone in Powell River to experience shifting their mode by replacing at least one car trip by riding a bicycle, walking, taking public transit, or using the Zunga Bus. We would like to invite mayor and council members to participate in this wonderful event this spring. If you could try to experience riding a bike, walking, taking public transit, or using the Zunga Bus in exchange for one of your car trips, that would be fantastic. Also, to participate in Go By Bike Week, we invite mayor and council to share a photo of yourself walking, rolling, or taking transit. And finally, on Friday, June 7th, the QRCA is hosting pizza and refreshments at Townside Brewery from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. We'd love it if you could join us to share your experiences walking, rolling, or taking transit around qathet. As a further enticement to participate in Go By Bike Week, in cooperation with Suncoast Cycles and Taw's Bike Garage, we have at least 4 demonstration e-bikes available for mayor and council to use for the week. There may be more than 4. We're looking for more. Some of you may already have one. For those of you who require a little bit more power up the hills, please feel free to contact us to arrange an e-bike demo. And we'll have helmets for everyone. And demonstration bikes in this photograph may not be exactly as shown. To further entice you to participate in Go by Bike Week, we would like to offer the community, the Hub Cycling Association's online Streetwise online cycling course. This is free, and it will explain for people who are unfamiliar with riding a bicycle on the street just how to go about doing that, some of the advantages and possible pitfalls to avoid. For full disclosure and any participation, I would like to offer informed consent. There are some drawbacks. Not everyone feels safe riding a bike or crossing the streets of Powell River on foot. And trips by bike, especially by walking and transit, may require more time and planning than your typical car trip. However, on the positive side, chances are you'll have a lot of fun doing so. You'll get some exercise and some fresh air. You might run into some friendly faces in town. You'll see Powell River from a new perspective of a cyclist, walker, or a person taking transit, non-driver. And a chance to win some cool local prizes from regional sponsors. Additionally, if you can register for Go by Bike Week, you have a chance to win a bicycle tour around Italy, as well as a chance to win a new Pedigo cargo e-bike by registering at Go by Bike BC. Registration is free. For Go by Bike Week, we have several events around town the morning of Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So at 7:30 to 9:30, we have a station at Magpie's Diner. Wednesday at River City Coffee, 32 Lakes is on Thursday. Coffee and refreshments will be served, as well as a chance to enter a raffle to win those local prizes. And on Friday, June 7th, like I mentioned, please come by Townside Brewery for pizza and refreshments. And that's all I have for you tonight. Are there any questions or comments? Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. I will start before passing it over to questions that June 2nd is also the Rotary's bike rodeo for the kids. So it's a good timing for Go by Bike Week. So we'll start with Councillor Isaacson, then Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. Do you have a sense of what the value of the offer for the bike for the week is, since we declare gifts over $250, and so that's something we have got to keep in mind. So do you know the value of what that would be for the week?
I don't understand the question. Do you mean how much will the prizes amount to in a dollar?
No, if you're offering the use of an e-bike for 5 days or whatever, if we were to rent an e-bike, for example, what would the value of that be?
I see. I'll have to contact the bicycle shops. I'm not sure if they do e-bike rentals or not.
Okay.
I'll get back to you.
Thank you. That's my first question.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. Well, Go by Bike, you can register online at Go by Bike BC. Is that what the website's called?
That's right.
Okay. And then I already have an e-bike. I rode it here today, so that's good. So I won't be needing to use one. The events were up there fairly fast. Couldn't write them all down. Can I look somewhere online to figure out all of this if I want to refer to it? Or
I'll try to. Yes, on our Facebook page, qathet Regional Cycling Association QRCA Facebook page, we have posters of the
events.
I'm not sure.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we'll continue to publicize those events. We have just about 1 month left.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Southcott.
Thanks, Chair. There's a new Motor Vehicle Act legislation as of about a year ago requiring motorists to be 5 feet away from bicycles. When I was in Ireland about a year ago, there are signs all over the place that have little round signs that, bike and car and 1.5 meters or whatever it is. Do you know of any, QRCA doing any advocating, or do you know of that happening? I haven't seen any in British Columbia yet.
I think the British Columbia Cycling Association is advocating for changes to the Motor Vehicle Act, including safe passing laws. I think it might be just 1 meter. I think that was enacted. Is it 5 feet? Yeah. Yeah, we're collaborating with other organizations and hearing what best practices are in terms of cycling associations in order to further improve the safety of cyclists and potential cyclists.
Another question, if I may. I've been a cyclist my whole life, and I cycled here today. One of the things that I found was that when I was commuting to work in Vancouver, I was almost quicker on a bicycle than I was by driving a car, not to mention just wanting to be on 2 wheels instead. Anyway, I wonder if the thought has occurred to you or anyone to figure out how long it takes to drive from, say, here to top of the hill in Wildwood, or here to Townsite, or wherever, you know, and make a little chart, because I found that it took me, I don't know, 12 or 15 minutes to ride from my place, or to drive from my place up to Wildwood. And I found when I got an e-bike, it only took me like 21 minutes. So the difference in time was really surprisingly little. Actually, you mentioned, you know, you may need to take more time. If you're on a regular bike, probably true, but it's surprising. It was always been surprising to me how little difference there actually is. Thought about doing that, like, you know, promoting for promotion?
Yes, sir, I agree with you. I think in my experience of cycling around many communities, what takes a lot of time from driving is looking for parking, walking from your parking spot to your destination, whereas with a bicycle, I can park right at the door often. And depending on where you're traveling from, north of town, south of town, or if that might take a little bit longer, but if you're traveling through town, I'm often surprised that I arrive at the same time as a driver. That is one idea we were thinking of in anticipation of that June 7th event at Townsite, is having a group start and sending people off to do their errands and arrive back at Townsite, and calculating like who's going to arrive first, how long did it take you, what was your experience, etc.
And maybe have somebody driving a car and seeing who gets back first.
Yeah.
Councillor Palm.
Thank you, through the chair. Quick question, because I always hear the in print safety on our roads with bikes. And do you have any stats on an annual basis that tell us how many bike incidents there are in our community on an annual basis?
That's a good question, sir. I think that ICBC would keep track of those numbers. I don't have them off the top of my head. Another complicating factor is that not every bicycle vehicle related incident gets reported to ICBC, and that the number of crashes may not be indicative of the level of danger perceived by people, and that some studies say that near misses may be a more important statistic to account for.
So you're riding on our streets quite often. Have you seen any interactions between bikes and cars?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mayor Wasnow.
Thank you for this initiative. I'm quite looking forward to participating. Probably like Councillor Southcott, probably 71 years since I've started riding, and I've had 1-speed, 3-speed, and 10-speed, but all the other technology is lost on me. So I assume it's okay if I manage to make my 3-speed or 5-speed workable and use that to participate. So thank you very much. It's a great initiative.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
I wouldn't recommend the Wildwood, the Townsite Hill, though, on your 3-speed bike, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you. Just thank you for coming in today. Obviously, I participated last year. I see you're using a photo of me in your promotion, and I went to a couple events and highly encourage people to go because the coffee places in question and at Townsite Brewing, there's free food, there's free bike tune-ups. Are you still doing that this year with someone?
I hope so.
What was that?
We hope to arrange the bike tune-ups yet. It hasn't been confirmed.
Confirmed yet. So hopefully that works out. It was great to get a little check over a tire or whatever when I went to one, I think at River City last year. And then speaking of safety, I know I live right near center of town. I end up walking a lot of places, but when I do cycle, obviously hills are an issue, but the safety or where I feel least comfortable is that stretch along Joyce between Duncan and Westview, where there isn't a lot of space on the road. All the lanes are quite tight, and not a lot of space for people to move around. And so even though I've not had an interaction with a vehicle, I could definitely see how people's perception of safety or going out once and not feeling comfortable might result in people choosing other options in the future. So noted, and I would understand how it might be hard to get the right stats for that, but appreciate the question. Thank you.
One final comment. If people are planning on cycling to Townsite Brewery, I'd recommend avoiding the highway and instead taking the Willingdon Beach Trail through the old golf course, through the labyrinth of trails. I think you'll find yourself at Townsite.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming out today. That's it. Yep. Moving on to 3.2, Maureen Christensen regarding garbage can for dog waste at Willingdon Beach. Welcome, Maureen. Okay. If we can pause the conversation to the end, please. Thank you. Go ahead, Maureen.
Hello. I'm coming here because I've had a falling out with the Parks Department, but I have had a good relationship with them for the last 6 years. Just this is year 7 and it's kind of deteriorated. So this area I'm concerned about, I'm not good at public speaking. About 7 years ago, I purchased half of a bench down at Willingdon Beach. It was an overdose bench for people that have died or struggling with addiction. And then the city donated a tree. So that was great. And I've been kind of going down and sitting on the bench for the last 6 years. And in that time, there used to be a garbage can down there. This is the old arena site near the chopping block where we used to have Seafair. In the 6 years I've been sitting down there, I've noticed that it is sort of an impromptu dog park. I don't know if everyone knew that, but that's where people go in the weird hours and throw balls for their dogs, or they just, whatever people do down there. But so there was always a dog waste bag and there was a garbage can. And then the garbage can got taken away about 3 years ago because the parks supervisor said that there are too many people dumping garbage near there, but he left the dog waste bags. And then the dog waste bags were getting used, but without the garbage can, people just kind of threw them all over the place. And it made it really unpleasant for me to sit on the bench because in the hot sun, you can imagine what the dog waste bags do. So then last year, the parks supervisor agreed with me. We decided to take away the dog bags, which was great, except this year now with no dog bags, now there's just dog feces all over, not in a bag. And I think my complaint, it really is that area of the park, of Willingdon Park, which is sort of the entrance to the park that you walk into, is getting poor service. It's kind of like sort of the crappy part of Willingdon Beach. And I've been trying to keep the tree alive with watering in the summer, and I've been trying to pick up garbage, and I'm just getting really frustrated because I think that Willingdon Beach should be tip to tip. It should be from one end of Willingdon Beach to the other. Willingdon Beach shouldn't start right at the end of the old arena site. It should start where Willingdon Beach actually is, which is where the benches are. And if any of you ever pass away, those are the councillor benches. So you don't want it all garbagey. Joke. So I just, in the last conversation I had about a month ago with the new parks person that I didn't know, I tried to brainstorm with them and said, why don't we put the garbage can, like make it a very small one with some dog bags, move it away from where people park. It would be for only people walking, but he didn't want to brainstorm with me. And he actually accused me of special treatment, but I don't think that's true. I just want it to be nice in that area of the park. And I believe that as long as the opioid crisis is still with us and is a health emergency, that I have a duty to upkeep that area, that bench and that tree, because I don't know who's going to need to sit there. And it's like a symbol to me. So that's what I'd like to see. I'd actually like to see some brainstorming of how to solve the problem.
Thank you, Maureen. Just for clarity before we get into questions, you're referring to the section kind of where the carvers are for logger sports, that bench up there. Am I correct?
Yeah, near the chopping block, there's a fountain, and then there's a row of benches and picnic tables.
Because there still is the dog bags, I think, right at the edge of the grass as you're going down the hill.
Yes, there's still dog bags at that end. There used to be dog bags at the other end when you enter into the park. Those, yeah.
All right, we'll start with Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Maureen. I've sat on your bench with you, actually. I don't know what the policy for our garbage cans and doggy bags are. I would like to know, and I wouldn't mind more information on that. I don't know if staff has anything at all for us regarding that.
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, I think Mr. Director Bratzlaff has some comments. Thank you.
Through the chair, we first off, we want to make sure people's experiences in all the parks and trails are as good as possible, and we definitely share the concerns of garbage and dog waste. It's something that is definitely an ongoing challenge across many parks. Our overall goal is to make it as easy as possible for the masses, while also trying to be aware of as much aware as cost efficiencies for the city as possible as well. We do this generally by locating our trash bins and dog bags in areas of high use, and we try to layer that with keeping all of our trash bins as far away as possible from any area that's closely accessible by vehicle traffic. We find that as soon as you get vehicle traffic, we end up with a fair bit of household waste in our garbages, and we are generally unable to keep up with emptying those. We get to our trash cans generally about once a week, spend about a little over half a day of one of our staff's time emptying trash cans, and through that day. We did get rid of the trash can a number of years ago that was at the chopping block side of there, and we were getting a fair number of calls of overflowing garbage, and it was mostly household garbage waste that was occurring there. We're trying to promote people to walk down to Willingdon. We realize it's a little bit of a walk. It's about, from chopping block, it takes about a minute and a half to walk across the 9 benches, and then about another 2 minutes down the hill to the garbage cans. So it's about a 3.5 minute comfortable walk, but 3.5 minutes is 3.5 minutes. Our goal is to try to encourage as many people as possible to head down there for their garbage.
Good, Councillor Elliott.
Just a follow-up. I know that that was a huge issue prior to doing the garbage at household is now included in the taxes, and we don't charge a per fee bag for households to put their garbage in their bins. The assumption was that we could see better results in and around the town as far as people not having to pay to drop their garbage off. They wouldn't be looking for other places to put it. Is that not are we not seeing a different kind of result as moving toward that?
Through the chair, it would be hard to put an exact reason in what we're seeing. I know we've reduced our garbage cans. We've gotten rid of about 8 garbage cans starting in about 2015, and as short as recent ago as about 2 years. In each case, it's just because the overflowing nature of the garbage, which is, again, typical household garbage, is occurring. I couldn't tell you why that is, other than it's usually close to where cars can drive.
I was just going to comment that currently at the old arena site, there is no garbage can around there. He is correct. You have to walk down the hill towards the museum down there. But there is a doggy bag place there. But I just really feel like that empty space does get utilized. It must, because there is dog feces on the ground. And I think what needs to be brainstormed is that it's actually a walkway. So if you're walking one direction, you're never going to turn around and go back 3 minutes that way when you're heading towards the next seawall, which is this way. And I think that's what needs to be addressed, is the directional walkingness of that. And I do think there is room to put a garbage can away from where people drive, but somebody just has to go down there and steady it and maybe have it bear proof and really small. And maybe it should say dog waste only or something.
Councillor Doe.
Just, having a clean place to sit on a bench and look at the ocean and do your thinking and do all that stuff seems like a good idea to me. I don't see a real huge cost in having one more garbage can or picking up one more, but, I'm willing to listen to that. But, I'm just curious, we've got a delegation coming about one particular spot where people are asking for it. Have you had a landslide of other people asking for other places to have garbage containers or doggy bags?
Through the chair, it's quite, we get regular requests to our park supervisor over the years, and the park supervisors have been, they take this pretty seriously, and they've been trying very hard to minimize the amount of garbage that occurs on the grounds. They're quite convinced that by removing the cans is the best way to actually remove the garbage in these cases. But obviously, if we were to give this another trial, we would definitely do it. The park supervisor did note that in a case like this, we would probably want a larger bin versus a smaller bin. The larger bins are actually in ground. And in that sensitive area, we just have to do a little bit of work in order to ensure that we could get an in-ground bin. We've got 8 in-ground bins across other parts of the city, including 2 or 3 in Willingdon. And they are good solutions, but they require even more planning in advance and different trucks coming and lifting it up with a crane type of equipment.
Councillor Southcott.
Thank you, Chair. There were similar questions about Moet Bay Park maybe a couple of years ago. I can't remember how long ago it was, and haven't heard anything about down there. So wondering what the solution was there.
Through the chair, we did remove the bin that was by the boat launch. We have 2 in ground, 1 or 2 in ground bins in other areas at Moet Bay. They work well. we did remove a garbage can at the boat launch area, and that has drastically reduced the number of calls we had for garbage. We did try opening larger holes and smaller holes. With the smaller holes, people will come and just place all their garbage around the bin, which even makes it worse. So it is tricky. So I hear the challenge, and where we are, it's a fluid problem-solving environment that we're trying to engage in.
If I may, Ms. Christensen suggested a small, like a garbage receptacle for just dog poop bags. Is that a thing? Like, I don't recall I've ever seen anything like that anywhere.
Through the chair, we don't use any of those specifically. It's we could explore that. I think once there's a garbage can there, people will tend to just put garbage in it. And that's why our parks supervisor would say, we need actually a larger bin. If we can't get there more than once a week or once every 10 days, it does need to probably be a larger bin versus a smaller bin.
Councillor Isaacson.
So I'm hearing your concern, Ms. Christensen, and also understand you've come to us because you feel you've sought a resolution and you tried and couldn't find one, so came to us, and so I appreciate that. It's a fairly operational issue, and so I'm wondering through staff, if you are making changes to your garbage pickup procedure, is this something that you do as a part of the course of your annual operations planning, or if you were to seek an increase or decrease to the amount of garbage pickup, that would be a like a change that would come through the budgeting process? Tell me a little bit more about what the assessment and the choices in the past, how things have been done, and how you might make changes going forward.
Through the chair, the decisions and changes have typically been made mid-process, mid-season as we go, and it's typically been removing one bin at a time up to the maybe one or two a year to test how that works. And it's something that it's an ongoing thing. We'll make decisions to add or delete, and it wouldn't require a budget change. It just requires a change in how we use our human resources. So we would get them to do a bit more garbage and a little bit less of something else.
Oh, that's a problem.
Yes, sir, Chair. Ms. Christensen, I just wanted to thank you for coming forward and being brave to step up to that microphone today to give us the details of your dilemma at Willingdon Beach. And I'm sure staff heard you loud and clear, and will be putting their minds at play in regards to this situation. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much. Here we go. Okay. Moving on, 3.3, Ted Vizzutti regarding council dealings with taxpayers.
Afternoon, Council. Before I get into this, just want to say in regards to the gentleman that talked about the bike riding and incidents going on in Powell River, if there had been. 39 years of providing emergency services in Powell River and to the area. I probably myself responded to about a dozen bike incidences where they were involved with a motor vehicle. So I don't know if that helps you. That was just me being on shift, so I don't know about other shifts, but you usually hear about it in the paper. So it's very low in Powell River in regards to incidences where vehicles and bikes collide. Bicycles actually wipe out more just because of the road itself. Okay, but that might help. I'll take 10 minutes back. Thanks. So, for many years now, the citizens of Powell River have been letting elected officials of this city know that we are not in favor of a name change. We have spent our own money to show you that we are committed to fight for our great name. What is getting in the way is you, our elected officials that have taken an oath to protecting this city and its citizens. Why do you feel that you have to be this way? All we've asked for is a democratic process. 5 of the 7 have spoken against its own citizens and said words that state that the people of Powell River are false in what we say and do. Councillor Doubt certainly let us know this at the last council meeting. He let us know where he stands, and he certainly put us in our place with words of intimidation, disrespectful, aggression, rudeness, and bullying. Good job, Councillor Doubt. You have shown us your true colors and ways of dictatorship. By the way, there is a video showing you at the hospital board voting on the name change. Why are you 5 so happy to piss off the people in this city? Our community neighbors.
Mr. Vizzutti?
Yes, I hear you.
Pause
Thank
you
you
for
very
a
much.
sec. Just mind the language as you're presenting, please.
Not a problem. It's the only one. Our community neighbors do not like what we ask for because that is not the way that they run their community. They run it as a dictatorship, and the council of 5, 6, or 7 do whatever they want. They do not involve all of their citizens. Their so-called leader has openly stated that he does not believe in democracy, that referendums or any kind of citywide say is not needed or a waste of time. I wonder what the rest of his community would say about all of this if they could speak openly and without the fear of repercussion or worse. We have seen this kind of action by this group against our citizens and businesses within the city and regional areas. Why are you 5 so stuck on turning our city over to people who do not care about the city or its people? Do you not see their intentions? Do you not see that they have no respect for us, no respect for our history, no respect for our families? Who are these people that you admire so much? Are these people a so-called nation, or have they morphed into a corporation? Who are you dealing with? Is it the so-called nation, all the people of their community, the people that have to say because of fear, that have no say because of fear of what might happen to them? My guess is you are dealing with the small group or possibly the corporation that does things out of spite, anger, and wrath. Who is governing these people? Who are these people? History shows that they were not born of this land, but they came from a land far away, and whoever was the first person to pull up onto the shores in a boat and decided to stay and pitch a tent was squatting on the land, this land, Mother Earth. These 1,100 plus shareholders, neighbors of ours, that now say they want everything. They want money, they want land, they want resources, they want our town, and they want our homes. They want this given to them in what they call reconciliation. Reconciliation for things that they say happened to them in ways that their story and storytellers say happened, and that their storytellers are the only people that know the real truth. So because they say this, and you 5 believe them, then that must be the truth, and we are supposed to bend over and hand it to these people, these so-called stewards of the land and sea. Have you gone out to the backcountry lately and seen what the stewards of the land are doing to the forests? Or have you seen the waste of salmon stock that the stewards of the sea waste every year? They have said that we do not understand and that they want to educate us to what they know and understand, their language, the way of life. How do they do this? They manipulate the narrative of Powell River, its history, and then they start trying to control in ways by involving kids. Kids in elementary school that are there to learn basic education such as English, math, science, just how to write their name. The school system tells them that Powell was a bad person, that the real name of Powell River is something else. They actually start to brainwash the next generation. What are we asking for is this: democratic process, an opinion poll of a yes or no answered question, that no additional names be added to this to confuse the issue at hand. No more C3 meetings take place until we know who we are dealing with, nation or corporation. That a witness test be conducted to find out and to verify their intentions, their sincerity, and who the city actually is dealing with. No more filming of meetings by outside groups. As Councillor Doubt stated about our intimidation tactics, we could say this is their way of intimidation. The female conducting this filming or pictures is well known for yelling out at people, calling them racist. I'd like to remind you of a historical date. December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor was attacked with no reason. The USA had been given a Medal of Peace before and during negotiations. These medals were given back after the attack on the backs of 2 bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Does this sound like a good analogy? This is what is happening to us, to Powell River, to Canada. Our accord is like the peace medals, meaningless. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Vizzutti. Any questions from council? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Listening to your talk, I reflected on what I thought was an excellent delegation by Mr. Whitaker. And he made the point, I thought a most impressive fashion, that it's often important to have a timeout. And so in listening to your presentation, it just reaffirmed for me that 2 things. One is it's important to have a timeout. And secondly, that there's probably no real truth. And I'm saying this because in 2003, I was fortunate enough to be at a meeting with the Dalai Lama, Bishop Tutu, and Sharon Ebadi, the latter who won a Nobel Peace Prize. And they were talking about opinions versus truth. And the consensus was when somebody says they have the truth, it usually is the start of divisiveness. And I think in listening to your presentation, if we can follow Mr. Whitaker's advice and have a timeout and then come back to discuss difference of opinions. And I'm quite excited that Kate Sutherland, who now has been in Powell River for 3 years, is starting a bridging community differences. And she made an excellent presentation at the Westview Ratepayers Association. And she modeled this with Robin Murray. And the consensus was you had 2 individuals who had differences of opinions. But by the end of the process, they could understand the differences that existed in the opinions of each one, but they could also identify those areas that were supportive of each other's opinions. So thank you for your presentation, and I hope it triggers in all of us the importance to have a timeout and then come back and appreciate each other's opinions.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, Councillor.
Sorry, one last thing, if nobody else has, is Canucks play at 6:30. Go Canucks.
Well, we do actually have Councillor Isaacson. Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Vizzutti, sometimes you come to council as connected to the concerned citizens, and I'm wondering your views that you share tonight. Are these your views or are they views of the concerned citizens?
So I am a concerned citizen. I live in Powell River. I am a citizen.
So
that's how this group actually works.
So you're speaking tonight as an individual who happens to be a member of concerned citizens. I just want to clarify that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else from council? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Vizzutti. 3.4, Diane Sparks regarding why the citizens of Powell River are requesting a vote on the name change.
Good afternoon. The electorates of Powell River deserve the right to vote on the name change.
Sorry, Ms. Sparks, sorry, can you just bring the microphone a little closer to you for those online? Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Test, 1, 2, 3. The electorates of Powell River deserve the right to vote on the name change. The ballot should say this and only this. Do you agree with a name change of Powell River, yes or no? This question should not be worded in any other way to manipulate or confuse the public. The electorates of Powell River should be advised a minimum of 6 months in advance of the election exactly what the wording is going to be on the election ballot. The town of Powell River was built by people that settled here from all over the world. Our ancestors built the mill. Our ancestors built the first hospital. Our ancestors opened the first barbershop, the first grocery store, the first hardware store, the first fire hall. Our ancestors built the complete infrastructure of Powell River. If it wasn't for the construction of the Powell River Mill and the migration of immigrants that worked in the mill, there would not be any town of Powell River. The town was built off the backs of our ancestors. I personally have 4 generations of family currently living in Powell River. My grandmother came here in 1912. She went to school here, got married here. My mother was born here in 1923. And my 97-year-old father still lives here and was my inspiration to get involved with defending the name of Powell River. Like thousands of other people in Powell River, our ancestors are from here. And as early as the McCrae family, who homesteaded south of town in 1888. According to the municipal website, there is only one councillor representing the citizens of Powell River that was born and raised here. Another is a 40-year dedicated resident, and the rest have been here for as little as 4 to 17 years. Most of our councillors have no history here and no emotional attachment to the name of Powell River. Changing the name of Powell River will not achieve reconciliation. It will bring more resentment, divisiveness, and conflict between the two communities. But most of all, you don't care. It's not your hometown. Many of you should be completely recused of any discussions or decisions with regard to the name change of Powell River. Councillor Isaacson should be recused of any interactions with regard to the name change because of her involvement with the joint working group. Councillor Elliott should be recused because of her relationship with members of Tlayaman. As far as the public is concerned, both is in non-pecuniary conflict of interest, and this issue should be addressed again. The survey that was done in the city limits of Powell River speaks loudly of the opinion of the electorates. As of May 5th, the numbers have been updated to include an additional 28 no votes from the regional district. Out of 2,082 submitted votes, 1,957 are no's and only 125 yes. The electorates have spoken loudly. They do not want a name change. When the council members...
Excuse me.
Use your signs.
You don't need the...
Please use your signs. When the council members when are the council members going to start listening to the electorates who voted you in? And a mistake that will not be repeated in the next election, because it has become blatantly obvious that most of you are not willing to listen to or represent your electorates effectively. To use Dr. Israel Powell as the excuse to change the name of Powell River is ridiculous. Dr. Powell has been vilified by misinformation. To label Dr. Powell as the instigator of a genocide is not only irresponsible, it is factually incorrect. The example of genocide is 6 million Jews killed between 1941 and 1945, 1.2 million Armenians killed between 1915 and 1916, 800,000 Tutsi killed in Rwanda in 1994. Dr. Israel Powell fought for free education for all children. Dr. Israel Powell felt educating the Indigenous to speak, read, and write English would present more opportunities. As hunting and fishing became a less viable option of sustaining their existence, education allowed them to provide for themselves within the settlers' communities. Dr. Israel Powell saved tens of thousands of lives by insisting on the school children being vaccinated. Think about it. If his intent was genocide, why would he bother vaccinating all the Indigenous? Why wouldn't he just let them all die from smallpox? Common sense, people. This country has lost its common sense. The vilification of Dr. Israel Powell was intensified when the media released the information of the Kamloops Residential School GPR anomalies, speculating unmarked graves that have never been confirmed by excavation. With regards to the declared but unproven Kamloops unmarked graves detected by GPR, the Pine Creek Nation chief in Manitoba made the responsible decision of excavating GPR findings in the basement of a church. The local history declared bodies were buried there. Pine Creek First Nation chief ordered an archaeological dig in the basement of Our Lady of Seven Sorrows in Pine Creek, Manitoba, after GPR testing found anomalies. This testing was provoked by locals' oral history declaring people were buried in the basement of the church. The oral history recollections were proven unfounded. 14 different GPR reflections were excavated. There were absolutely no evidence of human remains found in the basement of the church. The chief, Derek Napanak, advises other communities who are announcing GPR reports and releasing numbers of unmarked graves to be conclusive should be very cautious, he says. Do not stop there. Take the next steps and excavate to confirm the suspicions. It was their experience that GPR reflections are not accurate or definitive. The provincial government needs to confirm the accusations of unmarked graves with an excavation. This process will prove once and for all there was no genocide, and most definitely not by the hand of Dr. Israel Powell. The Powell River name change is based on. The people of Powell River deserve the democratic right to vote on the name change. We believe in democracy. Unlike the chief of Clayaman, who instead of responding with a letter thanking the electorates of Powell River to include them in the survey, retaliates by announcing the childish act of having a ballot shredding ceremony. This act begs the question, is this ceremony meant to intimidate his people and suppress their right to be heard? If you don't bring your ballot to be shredded, you will be punished. In my opinion, this is an act of dictatorship. When the joint working group presented information to the electorates of Powell River with regards to the name change and Dr. Israel Powell, they did not present all the facts available. All the facts are now available to the public in the book Grave Error. I implore all the council members to show integrity by educating yourselves with documented proven facts by reading this book. This book has been labeled racist and denialism. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, this book gives recognition and criticizes many of the strict rules that were implemented back then. What was acceptable behavior 100 years ago is not acceptable today. In the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, if you misbehaved in school, it was common to either get the strap or the teacher would cuff you on the back of the head. If a teacher did that today, they would be prosecuted for assault. Our generation should not be punished for the actions of previous generations that had behaviors not acceptable today. The world has evolved. Behaviors, opinions, and attitude have changed tremendously over the years. The gays and transgender people 40 years ago had no rights. Today they do because we have evolved. Our generation should not be punished for the actions of our predecessors. Resistance to reading the book proves bias, and if you should not be representing the citizens of Powell River with regards to the name change. It is reprehensible. The decision-making of this council is based on unsubstantiated oral history, suppositions, and hearsay provided by the joint working group, which was strongly influenced by the Clayaman Nation. Read the book to acquire all the facts, to understand why the citizens of Powell River deserve the democratic right to vote on the decision of renaming Powell River.
Thank you, Ms. Sparks. I got Councillor Southcott, followed by Councillor Doe.
And with that, I would like to give everyone a book. May I do that? To educate yourselves?
You're going to allow that, Chair?
Ms. Sparks, you can give it. The corporate officer would.
Take it back.
Enough. Enough. That'll be it for commentary from the public.
Do I have any questions?
Yes, Councillor Southcott, followed by Councillor Doubt.
Thank you, Chair. So it's abundantly clear to me that the intention of a vote right now, anyway, is to result in a no vote. And it's absolutely clear to me that there are lots of people who, if we were to have a vote right now, would vote no. It is also really clear to me that there is a whole different view, and that the view of the people who hold that different view see people who basically do not even want to talk about this, but just want to vote and vote no and not change the name, to be prejudiced against the people of the opposite viewpoint.
But the opposite viewpoint.
Oh, Ms. Sparks.
Please let me continue, because I have a question and I have a point to make here. So these are two very distinct views. Now, the commonality I see between these views is something I think that you expressed to some degree, at least when you started. And thank you for pointing out that one of us has a long heritage here. Your family beats mine by 2 years. And my grandfather was involved in building the majority of the houses in the town site. So I'm very proud of that. And this is the thing. We're proud of who we are we not? We are proud of the culture that we have. I'm not very proud of what's going on here right now, but I am proud of all sorts of things in this community. I am proud to have grown up here. I am proud of an awful lot that we are. But that's not what we're focusing on. We're focusing on something that we don't want, not something that we are and that we do want. And I think that the other side is too. There's great pride in the side that is grieving, yes, loss and all sorts of the things that you did itemize later in your talk. So the question I have is this. Has your group, and I know you represent, Councillor Isaacson asked this question of Mr. Vizzutti, but I know this is the Concerned Citizens Group, and it is a group.
Myself.
Okay, thank you. But I know that you are associated with many people who feel the same way that you do, and if that wasn't the case, this room wouldn't be full today. So here's the question, and that is, have you considered that really what's happening here is a division because of viewpoint? And have you asked yourself, or have you thought of asking questions, asking how can we bridge this? How can we find the commonality which relates to pride that we have, whichever side we are on? I'm not hearing us looking for the commonalities, the good in this community that I have known for a long, long time. Have you considered that? Have you considered looking for bridges? And as the mayor suggested, there may be an opportunity coming up that was announced at the Westview Ratepayers meeting a few days ago, last week on Thursday, as a matter of fact. That's my question. Has that question been asked in the group that I know that you are friends with?
What exactly is the question?
The question is, have you looked for a way to bridge, to discuss, to find the commonality that relates back to what
Yes,
I
I have.
identify?
And it's actually in this book, because if everyone was educated on the actual facts of what happened and the actual facts about Dr. Israel Powell, this name change wouldn't even be happening, because he's being vilified by misinformation. That's why I would like all of the councillors to read this book and get educated. And if you don't want to read the book, if you're not willing to take the book today, which is free for me, then that tells me you're biased. Like you've already made up your mind. You're not willing to educate yourself with the true facts of what's available out there to the public. The joint working group, they provided facts that was only what?
The question was, you're going off and extending your delegation further. That's beyond the question, the answer to the question. Councillor Southcott's question was whether you had explored, having a bridge conversation with the other group in mind. You're now.
Well, you can't have a conversation without being educated.
That's not
that's
true,
my
actually,
answer.
but okay.
That's my answer.
Councillor Dowd, followed by the mayor.
I don't have a question. Just get that out of the way beforehand. I'm not asking a question. First off, I think back in February, council decided to add to our priorities for this term an opinion poll on the very question of a name change and with the 2026 election. That's what I think your demand was for. Council has voted to do that. We haven't put together all the details and the plans and what the previous stuff is, but we've already voted to do that. That's
Excuse me, Mr. Vizzutti.
Not a question, not asking for input from the crowd. Comment is, council has already voted to have an opinion poll with the 2026 election. My other comment is, I agree with virtually nothing else that you've said tonight. But this council, in my experience, will listen to anybody who gets up and wants to say anything, and we've given you that respect, but I've given you my response.
Enough, please. Okay, that'll be enough.
Any other questions from council?
Excuse me, Ms. Sparks, I'm the chair of this meeting. Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. So I am going to again reflect on what Dalai Lama and Bishop Tutu and Dr. Ibani would say if they were sitting here. And I believe that they would say it's important to have an open mind, and if people present information like the grave error, then one should look at it and be able to have a meaningful discussion with other people. Just like there are numerous other articles that have been published by academics on Israel Powell and a variety of issues around there. And so it's again, they would say, read all of those. And I've read at least 4, which provide a basis to exchange opinions on information. So my question is very simple, is would you be willing to participate in a bridging community differences meeting? And the way that works is that you would invite one individual, I would invite one individual, and the 4 of us would sit down and have a session, and we would have Kate Sutherland participate with us, just so that we understand the process, so that if we wanted to do it with other people in our network, we would have that ability to do it. So that's my question.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Ms. Sparks. Mr. Kinley, this is not the time for comments or questions.
Do I have any other questions from council?
No, thank you, Ms. Sparks.
Thank you for your time. And you should really read the book, just saying.
Moving on to correspondence, letter 4.1, or section 4.1, letter received May 8th from Mr. Ted Vizzutti regarding respecting the city of Powell River flag. This letter is listed in the agenda package and all of council actually received it directly in our inbox. I'll comment and I'll open up the floor to council. I think by having it on the agenda, it's already been received. Mr. Vizzutti, after your letter, I took some time to do some research and looked at some information. Thankfully, we're in a community that Google hasn't had the chance to visit in 15 years. And so we have a little bit of a time lapse or time warp right on right on the internet. So I took a moment to go through Google Maps, looked at the particular places in town, City Hall, the complex, and the viewpoint down on Maureen, Wildwood has not been visited by Google Maps, and the airport is too far from the road to be able to get any perspective. But going back to 2009, when those photos were taken, the flags that were flying in 2009 are the exact same flags that were flying currently to this day. They are the flags that are based on the information I received from a previous corporate officer and from our Parks and Rec coordinator that are in the whatever bylaws or whatever regulations that might be in the city that are meant to fly. In the 18 months that our council's been active, flags, this is the only time that flags have been part of the conversation. So anything that has changed flag related is not by this council and likely not by a previous council, and based on Google Maps, not anything in the last 15 years from what I've seen. So I'll open up the floor to any other comments from council. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I have talked with our CAO with regard to a flag policy, and unlike other communities, we do not have a flag policy. So at a later date, I'm going to suggest to council that we ask staff to put in place a flag policy so that everybody in the community can know what the policy is.
Thank you.
Just on that, if you,
Mr. Vizzutti, this is not a comment. You're not a delegation regarding this. This is just your letter.
you mentioned my name and you talked about it.
Only because your name was on the letter, you can ask questions at the end of the meeting.
Okay, perfect. Thanks very much.
Councillor Powell.
Yeah, through the chair, I've got to ask the question. Was that flag flying at the last meeting? Flag? Yeah, it was. So my comments are this. The keeper of many of the flags that you see around our community and our facilities, we used to rely heavily because our ex-mayor by the name of Stuart Elsgaard put up those flag staffs at the yard and elsewhere. And if you're saying those are the same flags that are flying back in the day when he was in charge, I guess that's where but I noticed that flag's always been in the chamber. I'm not sure about the other facilities because I don't really look at the flags in any great detail, but I can assure you that the city flag is also prominent on the stage at UBCM when we attend that provincial conference, as all the other jurisdictions are on that stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Okay, moving to 4.2, correspondence received April 5th to May 6th regarding possible name change. This has already been received by council. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. 4.3, letter received May 1st from the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions regarding the Peer Assisted Care Team Program, otherwise known as PACT. Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Chair. This is related to a motion that I'd put forward at council and we'd adopted unanimously. I'm trying to remember, maybe about a year ago or 8 months ago, and I asked for this to be on the agenda just so that the community has an update. There was wide support for this in the conversations I had with people, for example, at a number of ratepayer society meetings. They were going to announce an expansion to 4 additional communities, but by the looks of this letter, they've decided to take a wait and see approach and take some more time to look at some of the results of the first 6 communities that are initiating PACTs. And so I didn't see here that we were not selected. It's just that they're not announcing for more in the future. And so hopefully when they get the results, if they look good, then we are still, on the table for expansion in the future. But disappointing in that they're not taking action at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Isaacson. Seeing no further comments, I will move on to our next section, 6.1, the Airport Runway Rehabilitation Project Update. Mr. Bertig.
Thank you, Chair, Your Worship, members of council. So I have here an update on the airport rehabilitation project, and I'll give you the status. along with a few photos and schedule here. So construction started at the airport on April 8th, and we're currently on pace to end construction on June 3rd. So you can see here, this was a few weeks ago, they were doing some runway shoulder prep on the west end, and we continued with helicopter access to the heliport. You can see here, this is the paving startup. You note all the equipment, and they're just getting prepared to put their first course of asphalt down. And here it is, the paving started Monday morning with a crew from BA Blacktop and some of their airport paving personnel. You can see the first strip and the variety of rollers that are used for different methods of compaction following the paver. This is the paver on the second strip. And the paving continues. You can see how far. This is a recent photo. So they did the first full width of the airport, so 45 meters wide by approximately 180 meters. And then the second, they were doing approximately 200 meters going across the runway. So they are definitely on pace, weather depending, to complete prior to June 3rd. So with the schedule, they have prepped the base. That was a lot of work, bringing in the aggregate. Trenching for the electrical is nearing 98% completion. And so what we're anticipating is the PAPI installation coming up in the next few weeks. One issue that we do have is light procurement. So all the way through, we had indications that there would be no delays in the supply of electrical equipment. But what we're finding now is the electrical equipment will not arrive until approximately June 1st, and it's going to take, or July 1st, and it'll take, I think it was about 10 days for the installation. What that'll mean is we'll still be able to open up the runway once the paving and the line marking has been completed, but it will be limited to daytime operation. But fortunately, we're entering into the longest days of the year, and we have approximately 16 plus hours of daylight to work with. So, and it will not impact Pacific Coastal's operation. Following that, we still have to do some obstacle limitation survey, and that's going to happen this week after we top some trees in the area, and then we'll complete the limitation survey to ensure that there's nothing that impacts the approaches. And we also have to do an audit to verify that it meets TP 312 5th edition, and that's an ongoing fact as well. We'll submit our AOM updated document to Transport Canada for their approval. So there you have it. Any questions?
Councillor Isaacson.
Chair, I see the end date hasn't changed since your last presentation, so it sounds like things are still on track for June 3rd.
June 3rd, but now that we're into paving, we're hopeful that we don't get any weather delays, but that's what we're targeting at this time, still June 3rd.
And you mentioned with the lights limited to daytime operation. What does that mean for emergency use, for example, airport or other?
That they too will not be able to come in at night, so we'll forewarn them, and they still have the helicopter as an option, like they do today.
Okay, thank
you. Just a quick question. Then you mentioned, I'm looking at the bottom over here, the audit verification for June, but there's still things on the task. I see lighting wise for July. Does the audit have nothing to do with the lighting and final project? Not with the lighting. No, we'll have the spacing of the fixtures. That's part of the TP 312
regs. So yeah, that doesn't have anything to do with it just now. So.
Follow-up question, Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Chair. I see also some taxiway tie-ins looking at later on in June. So what does that mean for between June 3rd and, oh no, sorry, that's 24/602.
There's, yeah. The taxiways, both taxiways will happen after they do the main runway strip, just because how they're going to lay it changes. So those are the last two items of paving.
I read the dates wrong. I was expecting the year to be the last date. So yeah, all good. Thank you.
Seeing no other hands from council, we appreciate
Okay.
that.
Through the chair, if Mr. Burtig, if you might clarify the difference between June 3rd end of construction and when flights are anticipated June 10th,
Yes.
so that people are clear. Thank you.
So yeah, construction, we're scheduled to complete June 3rd, but we have not planned to open up the runway until June the 10th at this point. So that's when we've told Pacific Coastal that they can resume operation. Should we finish prior to June 3rd, then there may be some opportunities for Pacific Coastal to operate some flights prior to, but we're in essence guaranteeing the June 10th opening.
Thank you for the update. Look, going on to 6.2, community engagement from councillors. So Councillor Palm, I'd like to start with you, and then we can go around the table, finish with the mayor.
Yeah, in light of 6:30 puck drop, I'm going to keep this short. Just a couple of items. One is we've had our first meeting of the newly formed Harbor Committee, and we have a number of community members on the committee now working diligently to improve the service in our harbor, and those discussions are underway. In our first meeting, there was a lot of information processed, and we will have 3 meetings prior to the summer hiatus. One last month, one this coming month, and one in July before we conclude for the summer, and then we'll be out of the gate running come September. Thank you, and I think I'll leave it right there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Palm. Councillor Elliott.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I'll keep mine brief too. I went to the Western Forest Products Community Advisory Group meeting on May 8th. The remainder of the performance indicators were reviewed, and the summary is all of the performance indicators were either met or their variance was met for the last year. So these performance indicators assist with certification of Western Forest Products operations, and they review them every single year and report out to the organizations that certify them to show what kind of operations they have. So they have met either the indicator or the variance to the indicator. The variance to the indicator indicates the range where you can be out or in within a 5-year average or some such thing, in case, because sometimes things go up and down a little bit, and so you can meet your variance one year, but if you're not, if you're in your variance every year, you would end up not meeting your indicator. So all things good at Western Forest Products. They've met all of their indicators or their variances. They said their operational information map that they produced monthly before is going to move to quarterly. We agreed that that was okay, since the updates were very minor for each month, and would be fine to move to a quarterly production of that. The FOM, which is a way that they put all of their forest operational things for public comment online, went live in April, and they put out their first FOM, and the public comment period has expired, and so then the information disappears once it expires, and you have to wait for the next one to come out. Anyway, they said they did not receive any public comments on their first FOM, and their second one will be coming out when they have more things to put out for public comment, probably closer to the fall. You can keep your eye on the newspapers because they advertise when they're putting those out online for public comment. And they're only out, I think, for 30 days once they post them. But they do post all of the plans that they're doing, and you can provide comment when they do that. And that's a new system starting in April, and it's called FOM. We're all FOMing these days, that's what we say. I did attend the Chamber of Commerce meeting yesterday, and they received had a presentation from a gentleman named Mark Dubois, and he's from the Together We Can Center in Vancouver, and the organization is going to be also Miklak Recovery Center is going to be following the Together We Can model, and they're linking together, and they're going to be part of the same organization, and they'll have the capacity to utilize each other's facilities, which is a good thing because Together We Can has some of the very best results out there, and they have they explained how they have a 2-tier system where they have treatment centers and mild detox. Followed by that, they have an in-house lateral transfer to tier 2 treatment. Like when you've received your 3 to 6 months of treatment, you can go to sober living for up to a year. And they help with employment skills, placements, all kinds of things throughout the community in their sober living facility. And the model is getting between 60 and 70% success rate for those who do complete their first 3 to 6 months training. So that's a really great record for that kind of work. And they wanted us to call them or interact with them, and they're going to be doing a lot of community events, and they're going to be getting out there to talk to the community. And they were asking the Chamber of Commerce for support in employment placement and things like that. And the Chamber of Commerce was very happy to have their members provide ideas toward that. So it looks like they were pretty supportive. The Chamber of Commerce is going to be having their annual general meeting in June. And actually, I think I had the date for that written down in here. AGM will be on June 18th, Mayor, just for your information. And they are looking to improve their membership. They said they've increased it so far to, oh, I didn't write that one down. But anyway, they are looking to increase their membership. The Blackberry Fest is being run by the Chamber this year, and that's on track. They have a fundraiser golf tournament on June 1st for people who want to participate in that. And it's a 50-50 partnership with the food bank. So the Chamber is doing much of the organizing. The food bank gets 50% of the proceeds from the golf course fundraiser, and they're hoping people will go to that. Thank you.
Councillor Southcott.
Thanks, Chair. Not a particularly happy event, but I attended on Sunday the 5th, the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls Walk. And it sadly reminded me of my 12 years in working as a paramedic in downtown Vancouver, where I became quite familiar with the continuum of recruitment to the likes of Robert Picton for women. And to my knowledge, those basic things are still going on. So it is something to look at. There was a disproportionate number of women from northern BC when I worked down there. Very sad to drive up and down those streets and see what was happening when I was working. On Tuesday, I attended Westview Ratepayers library event on the Declaration Act. It was a talk by a lawyer from West Coast Environmental Law. the act also known as DRIPA, which probably a number of us have heard about, and is there's a lot of change and challenge and trouble that's coming from that as well. So I really commend the Westview Ratepayers for sponsoring that event. Definitely there were varying views in the crowd and lots of questions following the lawyer's delivery. And on 2 days later, I attended Westview Ratepayers General Meeting. The mayor already mentioned the program Bridging Community Differences based on a program that's been worked, or it's been developed down in the States, called Living Room Conversations. So I personally am hugely hopeful that this can lead to some of us talking together and trying to figure out how to reconnect, bridge the differences and divisions that are in our community right now. And that's pretty much it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Southcott. I'll pop in real quick. Last week, I also had the chance to attend the DRIPA presentation and 2 ratepayer meetings. So I was able to attend the Townsite Ratepayers meeting for the first time, and I guess my second attendance at the Westview Ratepayers, although family obligations pulled me out of that one a little earlier than expected. But it was great to just be out there meeting the community, answering questions where given the opportunity. And yeah, I haven't had a chance to attend many ratepayer meetings in the past, so hopefully you can attend more in the future. Councillor Dope.
Been a busy time, try to get it all in order. I attended the group gathering that the city had for our situation table, which we've got funding for from the Attorney General's Department, which was a gathering of nonprofit organizations that provide services to people in the community who need them. We managed from a delegation that council took to the UBCM meeting last September to get $72,000 from the provincial government for seed money to get this together. So there was a meeting that brought all these groups together to talk about hopefully trying to find one of the organizations to take the lead and find alternatives to divert people from the justice system, not to do a catch and release system, but to find treatment for people who need it in the various ways that we can do that. Fortunately, the RCMP in town is right on side on that, and they're going to be a key participant in that process to try to identify people that could use and benefit from intervention quickly, be it treatment, be it restorative justice, or whatever is necessary, health treatment, housing, and to try to help those people out. And just goes along what I heard, what I think a wise person saying one time: if you do something to help the lowest and most troubled person in your community, you help everybody. And that's what I think the situation table can do. It can provide services to people who need them badly and make the community a better place to be. I've talked to everybody before about the fundraiser that happened on the 5th of May for the Port Tides Hospice Society. That went off at the Patricia Theater. It was a great event. I was sitting there watching the raffle undergo there, and it was amazing the donations that were given by city businesses there. And I just reiterate again that that's why we shop local, because they will support us in things we do when we need it. And there was a pretty successful fundraising event there. The high school band was there, other entertainers, and there was a video by Claudia Medina about the Hospice Society and what they do and what they're planning to do. It was unveiled for the first time. Anybody gets an opportunity to see that, I'd suggest that they do that. Next day was the plant sale that the Garden Club has. It was very successful. They'd scaled it down in COVID, and they're back up full blast and going strong. And yesterday, there was an event out at the Tla'amin Nation Government House, and what they called it was a ballot shredding or ballot composting. And I went out to see what was going on out there. I had a couple of ballots There were 3 sent to me at my home in town. It was different, very different than the ones that were sent to the Klamath Nation. But I went out there to see what was going on. John Hackett, the Hay Goose, said in his opinion, what they were doing was trying to take a negative and turn it into something good. They thought if they shredded those ballots that they've got, they could put them into their compost and put them in their community gardens that they've got by their harm reduction and other places in the community. And when I was driving out there, I was struck by the amount of development that's going on in the community. The shovels are in the ground, and they're working on a new community center, a new longhouse that's going right beside the sports center. You go by the harm reduction building, and there's a lot of things going on there. So it was actually a positive event, and the message out there was not one of intimidation or harassment. It was one of trying to turn something negative into something useful. So that was my events for the last few days.
Thank you, Councillor Doe. Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Chair. I went out to the opening of the basketry exhibit out at Tidal Arts Centre in Clonmel, Lund, and it was beautiful. So I highly recommend. I think it's on for another week. I don't actually know the closing date, but I feel like it's coming up soon. But beautiful handmade basketry and natural fiber weaving up there by a number of local folks, lots of different mediums. So highly recommend that. I also attended the situation table, kind of community opening, trying to figure out how to move forward and who might be able to take the lead. And I think it'll take some time for people to understand what it will take to be a partner. And it sounds like in Nanaimo, they benefited from having kind of neutral chairs that aren't the service providers. And so I'm curious to see who in the community might step up, being willing to take some of the grant funding and facilitate those conversations. I attended the First Credit Union AGM, which was virtual. 6 new members elected, and a number of them local to our city. So congratulations, and also a number of people whose terms are not up and are just staying on. So that the chair is staying on. That's Guy Chartier who also is the executive director of the qathet Divisions of Family Practice, seasoned governor. So congrats on them for another year around the sun. I met virtually with an owner of a business who does anaerobic composting, and he wanted to know more about, because he knew that organic waste was something that the city had taken on a collection of. And so we had a quick chat, and I because the regional district is the entity that really manages our solid waste output once it's been collected, I directed him to the regional district to find out where they're at in their composting process, because I know the regional district has been seeking a site or seeking an operator for composting for a region. And also to the Chamber of Commerce, because a number of multi-family dwellings and also the commercial sector don't get city pickup of their organic waste. And so, if there's a commercial opportunity for people to have contracted pickup of their green waste, that could be an option as well. But interesting technology there. I attended 2 half-day sessions of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities Climate Summit. And so there were a number of speakers presenting. Last week, it was mostly staff presenting on some of the projects going on in their communities. And this week, we spent some breakout sessions, really hearing from staff and electeds on what people were working on when it came to housing, when it came to transportation, et cetera. And that was really helpful to connect with other leaders in other communities to find out what sort of actions that they are taking to support their community in doing good for the climate. And then finally, I spent a weekend way up the Eldred Valley 2 weekends ago with the Knuckleheads Winter Recreation Association. Full disclosure, I'm doing some paid work for them, but this was a volunteer role where we were just helping improve access and signage. And it was a great weekend out at the climbers camp up there. Had the best night's sleep I've had in a long time with all that fresh air and the the background noise of the river, and met some people who have been involved in backcountry access for like 40 years, and just some great stories around the fire, and really appreciate the work that those few guys in particular have done over the decades to help ensure access to some really special places in our region under the radar. Anyways, that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Isaacson. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. I had the opportunity to give the opening address at a major judo competition. We had senseis from around the province with their young judo people competing, as well as some 60-year-olds. And Frank Layton did an excellent job of putting it together. I attended the qathet Community Orchestra, which has really developed over the last few years. And if anybody has not listened to it, I would strongly suggest, I believe the next one is in November, but they're now 37 members. Very impressive, you know, having started with less than 20. I did attend, as Councillor Southcott mentioned, the Westview Ratepayers meeting. I was asked to say a few words. I have had a number of calls, and I mentioned earlier, and then worked with staff to address the issue of flag policy. I won't repeat, but I'm hoping that we can put something in front of council in the way of a flag bylaw. CWalk users, again, I met with a number of CWalk users who have wondered why the CWalk renovations are taking so long. So I recommended to our CAO that we have a press release letting people know where we're at with this project. I also attended the DRIPA meeting at the library. I followed up. I'd mentioned previously that I'd met with the Pickleball Association and the Seniors Association, and they've now measured out 2 potential courts right next to the seniors facility. So it's pretty exciting because I think there's an opportunity to add some capacity for what seems like being a growing pickleball community. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And Councillor Doubt has a little extra.
I just got one more that I forgot about until just now. It's all the excitement. And hockey playoffs are going on, but don't forget about the Kings. I went down this morning and got my seniors discount on my Kings seasons tickets for next year. And it's available. They're available on the early bird rate until June 1st. So get down there, support your local hockey team, and get some seasons tickets. They're a good deal. And I talked to a member of the coaching staff on the way out, and they promised that it's going to be better next year. So I'm looking forward to that. Just wanted to say something. They're here. They're our team. Let's get out and support them.
And Councillor Elliott also has a little extra.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. The climate summit, which I managed to attend the first half of, but due to a migraine didn't get to the second half. But the keynote presenter on the day that I was there was Alison Ashcroft from Municipal Finance Authority. And she talked about how they are disclosing risk and reward impacts for investments with respect to climate change, and that cities can get this information to help guide their investments should they choose to use that information to support less climate risky investments. That the BC Municipal Finance Authority as a whole has huge investment clout and could make huge differences. And so that made me curious about whether we have an investment policy at all and whether we're looking at those things.
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, we don't have an investment policy, and I would like to see one proposed. I think there's a lot of value in having one. It identifies where council's priorities are with investments. So, for example, I know with this council, preservation of capital is the number one objective, as you would see in many of these investment policies, and so. It would be a wise policy to have in place. I have looked at other examples. So if that is something council would like to pursue, I would really support your thoughts there, Councillor Elliott. They're right on, spot on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And moving on now to section 8.1. Councillor Doe.
I'm gonna try something before you get into that motion, so we don't have two motions on the floor at the same time. And I would like to move the council be authorized to discuss the happenings at the committee or the closed council meeting of April 30th, 2024. And if there's a seconder, I'll explain what this is about.
Second by Councillor Powell.
So we had a closed council meeting on April 30th, and all of the discussion at that closed council meeting was directly impactful on the concept of the Zunga Bus and transit. And I don't think we can talk about the following motion with any kind of sense unless we know and we're able to talk about what came out of that closed meeting, because there's a lot of information there that affects transit and the Zunga Bus and future costs. So if this motion passes, we could discuss publicly what we heard in that meeting. If it doesn't pass, we're not able to discuss that here tonight.
Councillor Isaacson.
Yeah, just to speak to the motion, I think we can speak to Councillor Almeida's motion without disclosure of the conversation that we have in closed, in the sense that BC Transit is responsible for service reviews and large decisions that impact our overall system, where we have the authority to make smaller adjustments. And so I think both are possible without having the approval or the release of information from the person who met with us. I don't feel comfortable speaking about what they shared with us, because that was not the intention when we met.
Councillor Palm.
I, through the chair, just have to say that regards to the motion that is being brought forward here today, the discussions that we had in camera have a great significant role to play in terms of this motion. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to ask our CO or CAO with regard to choose what this motion would imply.
Okay. Through the chair, I believe through Mr. Berteg and Ms. Lafort, we have some updates about what we are allowed to disclose. So I'll pass that on to them. Thank you.
Through the chair, I did speak to infrastructure staff and the BC Transit representative, and we can disclose what's happened. Some of the stuff was already released publicly, so but there isn't anything that requires to stay confidential at this time.
Okay. Well, that being said, I guess we should call Councillor Dilt's motion. All in favor? That's unanimous. So moving into 8.1 then, which is my motion. So going back, for those that have been following along, back at the beginning of March, I brought a notice of motion that was specifically related to the Zunga Bus. March 21st, that notice of motion came to council. At the time, staff informed me that we were having now what everyone knows is a conversation with BC Transit, which, as Councillor Doe just referred to, happened on April 30th. And so back in March, we postponed my original notice of motion to be discussed this coming week after our conversation with BC Transit. Now I got to ad-lib a little bit because I wasn't prepared for openness as much. In general, how I was going to start, regardless of Councillor Dell's motion, was basically that, you know, BC Transit, along with any large organization, is like a tanker ship in the water trying to turn. They just can't turn and pivot as quickly as we can in our little power motorboat, and we can adjust a little bit more accordingly to our small town's needs. And that was the kind of the essence, the original essence of the motion. And while I originally had started the motion two months ago based on Zunga Bus, since that time, I've also had community members and bus drivers talk to me about the inconveniences of our current schedule and its limitations, and even the limitations of being able to use the facilities as a bus driver when you're en route, and things like that. So I approached staff last week about modifying the motion. So hopefully council has noticed that the notice of motion is slightly different compared to what was originally posted back in March, because instead of just focusing on the Zunga Bus, I wanted to look at a slightly bigger picture. The end result that came out of our April 30th meeting, now that I can talk about it, was that we can basically not expect much to change in terms of transit from BC Transit within the next couple of years. Things just take a little bit longer for them to move. And even they're still playing catch up with some delays in getting vehicles and things. We were hoping for some new vehicles for, I believe, 2025, and those new vehicles won't be ready in time due to delays in that industry. And so the gist of it is the earliest we can probably expect any sort of change, if we're lucky, is 2026, and maybe only till 2027. But my feeling is that we can probably impact some change, for one, through our Zunga Bus, and for two, instead of asking BC Transit to make some shifts to our schedule, we probably know as a community what works best for our community. And my hope is that not to spend more money. I would actually love to see that we can work together with staff and drivers to work within our current budgetary limitations and see if there's ways that we can improve service by even the smallest shifts of schedule. As an example, if you've paid attention to the schedule, most buses that leave the mall leave at 5 to the hour, 10 to the hour, or quarter to the hour. And if you've ever had a job that is retail related, you probably work to the hour. And so those people who are working to the hour wait 30 to 45 minutes to catch a bus. I feel like with some tweaks, we can probably make some changes. So my motion basically is to ask council for some creative ingenuity to work with staff, and I'm happy to work with staff if given that opportunity. Otherwise, I'll provide my feedback to see if some creative solutions can be presented. I think if it's a regular transit schedule, we'd have to still get that approved by BC Transit. And I would also like to consider, as we heard from our BC Transit representative about the off-peak, on-demand options that they're piloting, that might be a way to explore expanding our own Zunga Bus into like Cranberry just to start with, by just exploring the hours of operation. So it's a bit of a open-ended motion to look for some creativity. So I will make the motion and then I'll bring it to discussion. So therefore, I will move that staff be directed to bring a report back to council analyzing possible traditional transit schedule adjustments, as well as improvements to Zunga Bus operations, including changes to hours of operation, fares, and cost of expansion, to present to BC Transit to better serve the community and transit drivers. And a second from Councillor Isaacson, and Councillor Dell already had his hand up, so go ahead.
And the reason I wanted to talk about the meeting we had with Transit is they laid out their planning for basically the next 5 years and the process they're going to go through. The plan scheduling, number of buses required, type of service, where the routes go, where they stop, how many bus drivers they need. They've got a plan laid out to do that in conjunction with the city. So there's communication back and forth to do that. They talked to us about their planning for on-demand transit, where they have a model going in Kelowna that's just starting and is going to go for a couple of years. And they expect to have sometime ready for the 2026, 2027 budget year of transit, an idea about how they can participate in the changes of all of those things, including on-demand transit, how that would fit in there, as I said, in 2026 or 2027. Takes a long time to do this. None of these things are within the power of the city by itself. Transit pays the biggest chunk of the cost for the buses and the drivers and the scheduling, and they make the decisions. We have to convince them to make it different. I don't think, it's useful to have another planning process on top of that. Point out, and I've said before, that the regional district did a study this year on on-demand transit. They got a report back. It costs, I think, somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000 to get that report. And the report came back saying that on-demand service might be good if BC Transit is participating. And the key part is getting buy-in from BC Transit. Otherwise, you're going to have to put your own money in it. So while I think all the planning on those things should go ahead in connection with BC Transit for what they have said they are already going to do, I don't think we should engage in other processes that are separate by the city to try to do the same thing. Because we have the same partner at the end of the day, and it's all going to come down to who's going to pay for what.
Thank you, Councillor Dale. Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, I learned a lot from the presentation with BC Transit. I think one of the key learnings is while they're planning kind of a large scale service review, which hasn't been done here, I think, since 2015 or 2016, and we'll have great learning that comes out of that. The results of that will not be likely implemented until 2026. And so for me, what I see as the value of this motion is, what are the small changes that we could make given existing constraints to make sure that our transit is best serving the community and drivers given what we know. And so I think this represents an option to make small changes before a service review. One of the key learnings that I took away from that session was the way that they are seeing the value of on-demand is not necessarily in more remote areas of a town, but for use in, for example, an area like Westview, for route number 3, which is very busy at the beginning of the day and the end of the day is mostly related to school, but is less used in the middle of the day. And so could that bus be used on other better used routes for higher frequency and then focus on demand for a period of time where there's lower use in an area of town, in that case Westview. I don't think that sort of change can happen with the tweaks given our agreements with BC Transit, but I'm open to hearing about the schedule adjustments that Councillor Almeida talked about, those small changes, and also the potential cost of expansion, as an example, to Cranberry. So just an exploration on a small scale. This is not a service review, but given what we know, do staff see an opportunity for any changes between now and any changes that we're going to see from a service review? There is one amendment I'd like to make to this motion, though, and this is after traditional transit, to add the phrase "and handy dart." So it would say, bring back report to council analyzing possible traditional transit and handy dart schedule adjustments. I know handy dart is oversubscribed, and I know of private individuals who are being called to help transport people because handy dart is not in service and we don't have a wheelchair accessible taxi in operation in town. And so Not that there's an easy solution there, but I move that small amendment to add "and handy dart" after traditional transit.
Second from Councillor Elliott. So switching gears to the amendment, do we have any discussion on the amendment? I have a speaking list back to the original motion. Okay, Councillor Mayor Osna.
Thank you. Building off of what Councillor Doudt said, I would like staff to advise us, first of all, how much time they think it would take of staff time to implement this, and a best guess at what projects would have to be dropped that would be replaced by this initiative.
Through the chair, we're fortunate to have Dr. Bertek here, so I will ask him to give us his estimate. Like anything, depending on council's changing priorities, this will impact other projects, and I'll let him speak to that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, what we were anticipating was a full service review by BC Transit, who would look at the timing with our allocated hours that are within the budget. So small tweaks impact the overall system dramatically. It's not that simple. We, within our transit staff, do not have the expertise to refine that without the assistance of BC Transit. And just a reminder, BC Transit is doing the full review commencing this spring or summer for the full review, which would incorporate not only existing users, but other users that we're not capturing, and look at the overall system. So as far as amount of time that this would take, yeah, we would definitely have to drop something right now if we're doing it on our own with just our inside staff.
Through the chair, one option council could consider is directing resources towards a consultant, but again, we would have to do that with BC Transit to make sure they would support that consultant's recommendations. So that is something I've seen done in other jurisdictions I've worked with. But again, it's about allocating the resources, making sure that BC Transit would respect and incorporate the recommendations. But there are people out there who do that type of work. Thanks.
So before we get off track, the motion on the table right now is about the handy dart addition to the wording. Is there any other comments specific to the handy dart amendment? Councillor Elliott.
I don't have any objection to the change in the wording amendment, but I do have objections to the overall motion. But if we could deal with the amendment, we could get back to that.
Okay. So on the amendment regarding the handy dart addition, all in favor? All opposed? So only one opposed. That motion carries for the amendment. So back to the original motion with the amended motion now. I had an original speaking order with Councillor Elliott, followed by the mayor. You already answered your question, I guess? Okay, so Councillor Elliott, followed by Councillor Southcott.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm really glad we can talk about the in-camera meeting that we had, because I found it to be super good news overall. They said our ridership was fully recovered and at its best ever last April, better than ever before. They also said that their full service review is basically starting now and going until about this time next year in 2025, and that the intention was to come out with answers to including on-demand transit in Powell River by that time. So we would know by this time next year what their plan is for on-demand transit here in Powell River, and the intention was to rope that in and come out with a plan for that. They've also included us in the 10 communities that they want to upgrade buses to electric. I would not see this as a good use of staff time, since they're participating already right now in a full service review in cooperation with BC Transit. I think it'll be the best use of our time to put our time into the overall service review and hopefully affect the plan for next spring. I don't think we can impact much on our own, since the bulk of our transit is partnered with BC Transit, and they've laid out a plan for how we're going to get there. And I don't think we should be working at cross purposes or separately. This is one of the best plans I've ever seen from BC Transit, and it's incredibly good for our community. And I want to get behind this plan and help them get there as fast as possible without any delays. So I'm not in favor of the main motion.
Councillor Southcott.
Thanks, Chair. So I also found that meeting with Transit to be very encouraging because of a whole new idea that I encountered from previous thinking, and I've thought about this for a long time. And that was that, I mean, to put it in a nutshell, a system with two diverse parts, in other words, standard traditional buses and on-demand working together, just promises a whole lot more versatility and then better service to a community. And the idea of being able to expand the Zunga Bus or the on-demand to Cranberry and Townside at least, and possibly even to Wildwood, really was highly encouraging to me. So I wanted to support this resolution because I thought it supported that idea, but I'm starting to be swayed, and I would really hope that we would have as much input for the same purpose in the transit review. And I'm kind of all confused.
Councillor Palmer.
Unusual as that.
Yeah, thank you, through Chair. I appreciate all the comments that have been made at this table in terms of this item, and just have to say this is, in my estimation, a classic example of putting the cart before the horse. BC Transit loud and clear said this process of review is very detailed, very strategic, and needs to take place in order to serve our community better on transit. Our staff, who is already overburdened with many projects underway, does not have the time to work in isolation on transit without the support of BC Transit involved. So for all of those reasons, not just the time, but the cost, when we're continually to burden our taxpayers with right now $300,000 on an annual basis for providing the service we currently do with the Zunga Bus, which I spoke against at the time we voted. We're asking for more? No, we don't need more. We need to wait patiently for BC Transit to do their due diligence to help us out. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you. Yeah, first a question for staff. I know service reviews coming up, very important in terms of long range planning, but we haven't had a full service review in quite a long time. So through the chair, I'm wondering, what do smaller changes look like on an annual basis, usually in between service reviews? Like what do updates look like? How does that process work?
Yeah, typically if we identify a problem area, like with timing, so if the bus is always late on that run, then what we do is we provide that information to transit, and they do look at making those minor modifications to the schedule and the timing. We have to do it with annually with school runs. Because school bell times change, so we modify for that. So if we get indications in the spring, we can post a varied schedule for September, for instance. So, but it's the same. So some of these tweaks. What we have to look at though is what the impact will be on other runs and other customers as well, right?
So just to clarify, historically, if you've noticed an issue, you can say, hey, BC Transit, we've noticed this. is there a way to, you know, adjust the route and take care of that?
Yeah, but we have to keep within the hours of operation. That's you know, that's our budgeted time. So if we make a shift, we have to do it within those hours that have been allocated.
So I see, I think the spirit of the motion is twofold. I think one is to, for us to feel like we've done our, you know, in between service reviews, due diligence. I definitely hear about wanting council to think thoughtfully about transit. And so obviously an overall service review is key to that. But I think the, you know, an opportunity for council to be able to provide input to that. I see that as an opportunity here. I think the second piece is the Zunga Bus operation potential for expansion, and again being able to report back to residents about us having done thoughtful due diligence on areas of interest to them. I'm still open to this, so I'm at this point going to support this motion to be referred to the council.
Thank you. I've got a question. First of all, and I think I know the answer to this question, when BC Transit does institute on demand for us, which sounds like they pretty much promised they will, we will still be paying the same proportion, which is around 50%, correct? For the service, just like we do for the traditional service. Okay, that's the first one. The second question is, last year we budgeted for this year for an expansion of at least one of the routes, and I think we budgeted around $180,000 for that, correct? Which, because of insufficiencies with BC Transit, we will not be being provided that. So I don't think that this motion is intended maybe deliberately to compensate for what we're not going to get this year to the tune of 180 grand. But is there a possibility that there could be some compensation for what we're not going to get, or was what we're going to get just an addition to what we do have? I think it did address insufficiencies, did it not?
I believe, the CFO can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the 180,000 that we did approve earlier sometime last year was for the 2025 budget, which would now be, no, I believe it was for expansion in 2025. Could be wrong. So I think that might not be relevant. And my goal, similar to what Director Burtick said, I know we can't change the BC Transit regional schedule drastically, but working within the limitations that we have, I at least wanted to see if there was an opportunity to get more out of the existing schedule and try to increase ridership at the same time without increasing any costs to anyone. But am I correct on that 185,000 CFO? Yes, okay, seeing ahead, none. Yeah, so there's no budget implications at all. Okay, so seeing no further questions, I will call our amended motion. All in favor? All opposed? Motion is not carried. Moving on then to section 9 questions. So start off with Mr. Galinsky. As he's making his way up, if you are online, there should be a phone number and a meeting code to dial into. So if you have questions and you're watching the live stream, you can call in and our IT expert Kirsten will take care of you. Mr. Galinsky.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the opportunity. My first question is with regard to the Runway rehabilitation project and budgetary matters. I'm wondering if there has been any discussion whatsoever about that particular component of it, or whether it will be something that will be added up at the end of the project.
I will pass that over to staff.
Through the chair, I understand through Mr. Burtick that all is on track and within budget, but I'll let him confirm that.
Yes, the project is on schedule and on budget.
I appreciate that response from the director. Thank you very much. with regard to the analysis of the Zunga Bus. Has there been any indication from BC Transit with regard to on-demand beyond the Kelowna experiment? Did they indicate anything about possibilities and prospects for communities such as ours?
No other communities were mentioned in our meeting, and as Councillor Elliott pointed out, after our service review, the earliest we might hear something is probably next year with a 2026 timeline if we get that lucky. But Councillor Dowd has some other thoughts.
What I heard was a commitment to come back to us with their position on that at the end of this service review, which would be in 2025.
Councillor Hutchinson.
To expand to additional communities, and they will have an evaluation matrix to determine which communities make sense to expand to. But that again will happen into the future. And there's no timeline assurance that we would be selected.
Would it be correct for me to assume that this community will continue to advocate for expanded on-demand busing?
There's certain members of the community that definitely, I think, would advocate for that, and I think the conversation will continue going on.
I thank the chair for the opportunity to pose questions.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Dowd.
Just want to add to that. I think generally council appears to me to be in favor of the concept of doing it. The critical thing is getting BC Transit to a point to agree to pay their 60% share.
Any questions online, Christian? Nothing yet? Okay. Anybody from the audience? Go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hi there, Ted Vizzutti again. I'm not sure if I can speak regarding just giving you some information first on the flag thing, because it kind of all started in the city in the late 80s, early 90s. I don't know if you want to know that past Mayor Alsgaard had put in a flag.
Is there a question though, Mr. Vizzutti?
There will be.
I think as the mayor shared, at some point down the road, there might be an appetite for a flag bylaw conversation. It's just not top of the agenda at this point. So I'm sure there'll be an opportunity for that information.
Question is Councillor Doubt. I've watched many council meetings here, and why do you have a hard time saying the full name of a community service? You've done it a few times. One is our hockey team, the Kings, well, the Powell Kings. Two is the gardens, the flower service that you are involved with. Your wife is president. It's called the Powell River Community Gardens or whatever it is. You just seem to have a tough time getting that out. I'm just asking, why are you having a tough time saying our name and respecting that name?
I don't have trouble saying it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions from the crowd? Go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
John Edwards. I'd just like to know if I could make a comment to the Parks Board about the garbage can at Willingdon Beach.
It was on the agenda, so a polite comment would.
Yep. My experience, I ran the Orca bus down there for about 10 years off and on. And they had a garbage can there and the household garbage was going into it. I think the solution is you can put that garbage can back, put a couple of bars across the front so you could only put dog feces in or a coffee cup, something like that, to avoid the household garbage, which when I worked the Orca bus, I cleaned up that whole area while I was waiting for the program to be over. And there was household garbage being put in. I think if instead of one bar in the middle, you put two to keep them from putting their household garbage in, that would be the solution.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. I appreciate your service to the community while doing other jobs as well. So Councillor Palm had some comments.
Question, Mr. Edwards, and I just wanted to say the Orca bus came into being when I was first elected, and I want to thank you for your dedicated community service for all of you. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions from the gallery? Okay, seeing none, moving on to section 10. Councillor Isaacson.
Move that council move into a closed meeting to discuss matters covered by the community charter under sections 90 part 1, G, litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality, I, the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and J, information that is prohibited or information that if it were presented in a document would be prohibited from disclosure under section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Second by Councillor Southcott. All in favor? Moved. We will reconvene after a short break.